Well, good evening.
I can't hear you, Matt. Let's try one thing here.
How about now? By now,
No volume.
wide open.
Let's make sure it's not me.
Anything?
Testing, testing. Testing, testing. It sounds like my input's working, right?
I can hear you fine.
You can hear Matt, so that's got to be me. Let me just test my. People can hear both of us. Got to be me, Matt. So hold on a second here.
Off already.
Down here.
Yep. Gotcha. Can you guys in the chat room hear me? I can't hear you.
Yeah, we hear you now, Matt.
I got you too. Okay, good.
Yeah, it was a user error on my part. I just have to see where the little X is and take it off.
Yeah, we're Oops.
All right. That's appreciated, everybody. That was putting up with my lack of tech skills on this one. Nick came over and clicked one button and it was done.
That's why I get the big bucks.
Exactly. So look at this has been 2 weeks since we got together, and a lot going on. You've got seems there's a bunch of people. How many people on the YouTube channel right now, Nick? So 25 on YouTube, 27 on LinkedIn, and more streaming in. Everybody, that's the ones that register. There might be other people watching that aren't literally clicked into it. But good stuff. I like love your following, Matt. A lot of good folks up there. So everybody, welcome to Lunch with Lumbermen. Matt Lehman, Lehman's Lumber Guide. Was just finishing reading through this today, Matt. Some good stuff in here, and you're back home again, man. You're not remote in the mountains somewhere.
No, I got my fill of the mountains for 1 year. It's going to take me a while to get ready for that. Actually, my wife told me we're going back there for New Year's, so I think that'll be it for a while.
So is there a lot of building going on up there, new houses and so forth?
I think like per capita, probably not a lot, but there's a lot for sale. I mean, they had a buttload for sale like all year long, and it was selling fast and getting, they're getting $400 a square foot for property. It's ridiculous, but there's plenty for sale. Yeah, there's a little bit of new stuff, but not a whole lot.
So let's just jump right into it. I was reading another dimension and reading the market analysis. So another dimension, the one thing you kind of have to talk about. I always, these railroad strikes always get a lot of talk. They always end up not generally happening. And I was reading an interesting. First, I read your write up on it. So if this has been going on for over a year now, talking about it. We came right up to the brink of it a couple of months ago. We came up to it again, and I read an interesting blurb last night about these railroads have created such an issue with laying off almost 30 or 40% laying off, getting rid of through attrition over the last few years, and combining that with that just-in-time big trains shipment. So the last thing that they want to do is what this person said, whether it's true, is pay people to take time off because they need as many warm bodies as they can all the time in order to just simply hit the metrics that they have to hit nowadays. And I mean, it looks so far that this isn't going to happen now. What's your thoughts on that, on the rail strike?
Yeah, it's not the strike might not happen, or it may happen, and they walk and they're ordered back to work. But the problem is going to be the problem hasn't been resolved.
Correct.
You still have 50,000 or 100,000, how many railroad workers there are, unhappy railroad workers, and the job situation. Look at jobs were like 10 million jobs available, and pre-pandemic we were 7 million. I think at the peak we were like 11 million, but there's still no problem finding a job. These guys don't want to work for the railroad, and the pay isn't an issue. I think it's just how they got treated, and they just want to be respectfully. I mean, not that I'm kind of some big whatever it is, anarchist or whatever, but these guys just they want some time off, and I think that Biden chopped in yesterday and said, okay, you get 7 days of paid time off. Well, that's the government telling you what you got to do in your business, and the whole precision railroading process requires that they have longer trains and less people running them, and that's not going to change. I mean, like we said this before, are they going to change their business model? And that's if you're not going to change your business model, you got to disclose to your employees that here's what's going to happen. You're never going to have any time off. You're going to be on call 24/7, 365, and they're just not going to get people who want to work that way. So,
And you think about the consolidation of rail over 10 years. There's now like only 7 Class 1 railroads, and out of those 7, one of them carries most of the freight, like in all the United States, and out of those 7, like 3 carry 80% of it. So,
yeah,
you think about that. You've already through attrition gotten rid of a lot of your employees. You need to hit these metrics that are a lot harder to hit. You don't want you're in a spot where you don't want to give people time off. You want to pay them a salary, but not it's and you basically have a profit margin almost 2x of what it was 5 or 6 years ago, right? it's
yeah.
it's it's an interesting pickle to be
You
in,
got
right?
to give they got to give something to the employees to make that model continue to work, or
Yes.
they got to ban the model to make the employees happy. But just either way, it's the problem isn't going to go away. You make people go back to work. Because I'll go back to work, but I'm going to walk at half speed. I'm going to drive the train at 12 miles an hour, and you don't have to. Yeah, I guess there's a lot of things that the workers can do, the union workers can do to kind of fight back. But it just seems like that making people go back to an unpleasant work condition isn't the solution to the problem.
No doubt about it. The second thing I saw is is it a big mistake? Government will back loans over 1 million, but you also went into here. It's odd because we are going into seasonal strength generally in the business, and it doesn't feel like it right now. But
Uh,
but everything in that I see in my gut is telling me uh right now you talk to people, they're taking they're wanting to clean up inventory. Mills are doing a great job keeping inventory moving, right? uh Reloads seem to be full. We tried to ship lumber to a couple of them. They're like, we can't take any more in here at a couple locations, which I'm like, really? That may be. So are we kind of setting up for something where
well, if you
you know
think about it, we talked about this when this rally started. When Spruce tried to start a rally back in the 1st of October, 1st of November, I guess, and and the wood just kept. You'd see like 6 cars of wood, like Fraser, Canfor, somebody, Toko had 6 cars or something, and it would just be gone. And all of a sudden, the price was there. They were soft, and it just got gone and they got back to relatively flat or firm. But it's my understanding, from just what I could tell, is mills were relocated, specifically the British Columbia mills were reloading that product to VMI and reloads and warehouses or whatever, just to keep in case they had more curtailments, they didn't want to be sitting there with a bunch of wood. And I think that's probably what that wood is. Um, I can't imagine that it's from the industry on the demand side or the consumer side. And if you don't want to build your inventory by one truckload, you're certainly not going to be cramming wood in a warehouse. And
yeah
a lot of that warehouse wood is pre-bought lumber for multifamily, which has been strong. And a lot of that stuff got bought in the last quarter, in last couple of months, for jobs that they're going to start in the first quarter.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, what we've seen here is a lot of the stuff being done on the platform right now is still going to offsite manufacturing, like truss plants, wall component plants, and either to job sites direct. Uh, which people are we had another 20 trucks go to job sites direct last week, or going into jobs coming up in the first quarter and going into distribution facilities. And again, as you and I talked last year, all people that never bought lumber directly themselves until recently. I mean, some of them are your clients, Matt. And
Yes, and actually, some of these people have never taken lumber delivery before.
crazy, yes.
Yeah, if you're on a
Yeah.
multi-family job site, and all of a sudden you got 8 trucks of studs that shows up, you go, well, do you have the fence to keep it secure? Do you have you're gonna have the cops ride by every couple hours, make sure nobody's vandalizing the stuff, and is it going to get crappy and muddy looking because you got 8 truckloads and you only needed 2 at a time? But it's going to be interesting to see how this, at the end of 2023, all the people that thought they wanted to be in the lumber delivery business or retail business, if they change their tune a little bit and realize that it's worth giving the retail lumber yard or the contractor yard 10% to not have to hassle with it.
Well, no doubt, no doubt. So let's just go over. I know. Can you catch us up again on the chart below? Going into,
Yeah.
you can kind of see where we're at right now. I would say, the market is still is still trying to is still fluid. So everything that's being made is being sold. Like, I mean, there may be big counters on stuff or counters, but there is a lot of inventory moving and exchanging hands on a daily basis. So, what's your thought going into January? Still, are we still you still looking at the January chaos area?
Yeah, I'm trying to not listen to the stories a whole bunch because I mean, everybody's talking their position. The contractor yards and LBM dealers that don't want to have inventory can justify it with economic news and talk of recession and demand going to be down in the first quarter. And then you look around and almost everybody with that exception is looking for something for quick to fill in with. They're out of something. And I heard yesterday that there's a lot of shorts still in the market. There is in the board. There's a lot of shorts in the cash market for jobs that don't need to be delivered until the first quarter. And I don't know if they can be bought. They might have to be held on to till they can get closer to delivery time. But the shorts on the board continue to be able to roll out and get out without having a big disruption in that market. And we saw that futures was like a $60 discount coming into today, and the mills, like you say, the mills they're not showing a lot of wood, but when they show it 20, 30, $40 cheaper, and it moves the buyers back off again.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, there's a big I guess we always talk about this in the West, Western spruce. There's really only a handful of mills, really 3 that run that market, and it's kind of hard to keep a finger on what's going on there because you call a few people and find out what they're trading at. In the East, there's still enough smaller mills around or non-consolidated ones where there's some fluidity there. It seems to be, if we just go around the horn, Nick, you bring that one up, the OSB one, or excuse me, Southern Pine. Southern Pine still seems to be fluid and moving. It seems like 4-inch and 6-inch. When I see people listing every day, those numbers are finally coming down again. So it looks like there's some counter there. What are you seeing on the Southern Yellow Pine side of things, Matt? Because you're really good at that.
Same thing. It's kind of the same situation as SPF. The difference is with Southern Pine, you have treaters and component manufacturers as 2 big hitters that between the 2 of them, they could probably take 60% of the product. And that's when those guys are busy and they're in the market, they're building inventory, then everything's good and fine. But when you don't have those 2 guys participating in accumulating inventory, then the market goes nowhere. And that's where we are right now. I know you guys have seen this MSR, and number 1 or upper grades have gotten they're tight just because there's not a lot of it. And the structural people from in the Midwest that were buying MSR out of Canada are now trying to get pine going north. So Southern Pine's really going from Texas to Florida straight north to Canada. It's just, I mean, it's got a bigger market share, but it's also got more production this year. So we're kind of I think Southern Pine's still in we don't know what it's going to do yet kind of mode. But right now it appears as though the way the treaters and the component manufacturers are participating, the market's a little bit overproduced. But I noticed I looked at some of the big box stores around here I'm not going to say they beefed up their inventory, but they've gone from having 4 units outside to having 2 truckloads outside. So they've gotten a little bit of extra inventory.
Yeah,
So
so I look at it's interesting just talking about. I want to go back to one thing that you talked about, and for the people listening, um, you know, there's been so much consolidation from independents to these big 5 or 6 chain yards, or I shouldn't say chains, just big, large conglomerates. That historically, a lot of these people would have already bought for Q1 and had wood on the ground. They are not doing that right now. I mean, they're not
yeah,
doing that. And I know we made the joke about this is being run by the ninjas with black belts sitting in the office telling people why not to buy, and they're continuing to do that. And that's one of the things that's weighing on one of the things that's weighing on this. Um, and when people don't see them in buying, people don't buy as much. So that's one thing I'm seeing. I was going to bring up the OSB chart here too, Matt,
the thing
because
that
that's
I ask you, if you're in the business of servicing those people that aren't giving you some direction about what their business is going to be like, you can't take a position. If you're
correct. Yeah,
a
you're
wholesale
right.
distributor, you can't buy a bunch of wood thinking that people are going to continue to what they act like they have for the last 10 years when they're not doing it now. They're behaving differently. And the thing that what the FTP shows us is that sooner or later the seasonality, the repeating human behavior, the customary things that you do are going to take over, and we're going to get some kind of move up. And I was just talking to somebody right before we got on the phone here today, or on the web today. He said that Toco, for example, was out yesterday at 380 or 375 looking for business. They sold some, and the guy called today and asked for a couple of cars at 2 befores. He told me it was no quote. He couldn't do them at all. So they gone from having extra cars on the ground yesterday to nothing today. And I think that's what's going to happen. We're going to turn around one day and it's just going to be gone. We're going to be $50 higher. And if you were to, we talked about this the other day. Mike and I were talking last week that if Builders First Source, 84 Lumber, Lowe's, Home Depot, um, Menards, just those 5 people were to be throwing their Carter Lumbers. You could pick the half a dozen of the biggest guys out there, and if those guys made the decision they wanted to build inventory, the market can't cover those 5 people, those 5 or 6 top people, without some sort of massive uh, disruption on the supply side. It's just the wood isn't there. The mills have been curtailing a little bit in the South, a little bit in British Columbia, and everybody's still thinking we're waiting for a big announcement from somebody big that says I'm shutting down for a quarter. That's it's not going to happen. But we're just going to get just a little bit of leaning on the mill side and more leaning on the supply side. And I think the market within another week we could easily be underbought, undersold, and this market spin on its heels and start taking off. And I know I'm talking my position, but it's just my position is historical trends repeating themselves.
Yeah, no, and then look at one of the things in our call yesterday. Everybody was asking about curtailments. When are curtailments going to happen? When are curtailments going to happen? And when are they going to happen in Europe? And we know we're up against the costs now. I know Russ Taylor was on yesterday, not on, but he said something in the comments about, obviously in the higher cost producing regions in BC, and I'm going to hopefully I don't butcher this one. We're up against the costs on some stuff right here, right? And
I heard, I've heard they're $100 in the hole already.
yeah, yeah. I mean, when you say up against them to there's A, B, and C mills. The high cost production mills are obviously through them. And get to Europe. Somebody sent me over how they're going to start charging some type of fee for shipping for their what do you call it, for their carbon and so forth. It's just adding more cost to it.
Yeah,
So
that's you add whatever you want, but if people are looking at a delivered price for lumber, and that's what it's going to be. It's
so
not
here's
going to
another
be.
here's another one. See, the big thing that I saw really take the big finally I've watched it trading below here for 3 weeks, and finally print adjusted on OSB everywhere. It was already adjusted up in the Eastern Canadian market, but it seems like Southwest, Southeast, and all that finally adjusted down to where the real market had been trading for a couple weeks. And in especially in the thin panels, thicker panels may still have a little bit of stuff, but uh, you know Another product that's a bread and butter product that's easy to store. I'm wondering when that bounce will come in that one.
Well, if you look at that picture right there, it sure looks like now is the time to be thinking it's going to happen. And
Yeah,
we still don't know is like how much contracts are out there and how many shorts are out there that still have to be bought. And there's a lot of reasons why when you look at, and I think one of the most compelling reasons right now is you look at 7/16 OSBs down at $250, and everybody in the world wanted to buy it at 300 delivered 6 months ago, and now you can do it. And the reason that my comment was, well, if it gets to $300 delivered, you're not going to want it because it's not going to market won't be any good anymore, and
well,
that'll be your excuse.
and now talking to people this week, is everybody's waiting for it to get to 150 or 180. Now they're all looking at the historical charts. I'm like, I don't see that.
But you know
But
what? You're not going to get. I keep telling everybody, in the first quarter, You're not going to get beat out of a job on price. You're going to get beat out of a job because of relationships and your what's happened in the past. But people aren't going to. I mean, go to that page that's got the framing package index.
yeah, let's go over to that one. That's a great one we were going to pull up here. That's second to last, I think, Nick, or
I think so. But that's probably third to the last,
third to
third or fourth.
last. Yeah, there we go. Page.
Transportation impact. Yeah. Scroll down a little bit. The bottom line on the spreadsheet part at the bottom. Look at that. We're $9 a square foot for replacement costs for dealers for framing packages. At the height of the pandemic, it was $35, $36 a square foot for replacement cost. We're down basically lumber framing packages are 25% of what they were at the peak.
And just so everybody knows what this is, Matt takes kind of a compilation in different regions of the engineered wood, the panels, and the lumber to come up with this number. Does that sound right, Matt? Am I wrong
Yeah,
or right?
it's basically the roof system, the floor system, and the walls and the roof and floor and walls.
And that's crazy when you think about it. Think about when you saw all these news stories about the cost of a home, and somebody's framing package was now 150 to $200,000 when it was quoted at $50,000 2 3 months before, right? If this framing composite index, Matt, I really think this is one of everything that you put out is great, but this is great for everybody, whether you're building a house, 1 to 5,000 houses, or buying or selling lumber. Just to this kind of compiles everything to what it really means to somebody building a house in different regions, right? And that's crazy. You said it's 25% of the price of what we started the year at.
I just started keeping this statistic back right before the pandemic started, and when back at the end of 2019, and we were at about somewhere between $7.50 and $9 a square foot before the pandemic hit, and then we haven't been back there since May of 2020. I think this is when the last time we're back above $35 a foot. But it's interesting that when you're trying to decide, is this a good place for investment or is it a good place for putting wood in based on whatever it is. Just look at the framing package index and realize where we've been. We're 25% of the total value at its worst, but we're almost back to where we were pre-pandemic, within a buck or two a square foot, and it's not that much. So you're not going to get. That's what I was saying before. You're not going to get beat on price of your framing packages. You're going to get beat because you don't have the wood, or you're short. You're out of something, and I just keep thinking it's coming. It's like I had a buddy, Tom Martin, used to say, the longer they don't buy, the more bullish I get, and that's how I feel right now.
Well, so think about it. We talked about this. This wasn't my idea yesterday. Greg brought up a point. He goes, "You know what, Ash? We've been talking about 6 months ago, 8 months ago. We were talking about home and lumber prices coming off, and now it's done it. And now everybody else in the market and the general population is talking about it. And generally, when that happens, something is going to come out of the blue, or as they say, the hand of God is going to come and change things, right? Because everybody's kind of shifted to one side of the boat at this point."
Yeah.
And so John Breckenridge brought up a point, and I'm going to kind of reach out to our audience also to answer this. If Matt, you can also help. When will we see relief on engineered wood products, EWP? So how about if any of our listeners out there, are you already seeing relief on EWP products? I've seen some people come to us now and want to list them on the platform that never have before. So I'm guessing you're starting to see the beginning of it if you haven't already. Another one of
Yeah, I've
my
seen it in the
yeah,
last 6 months, just conversationally. It's been getting better, but I haven't heard anything specifically about where the prices are coming down. But if you look at apparently the way 2x12s have been trading for the last couple of months, it's still pretty tough because 2x12s late 18 and 20s were up like $2,000 a board just per thousand board feet for when everything else was falling, and then all of a sudden the 2x12s 18 and 20 just started to fall like a rock, and so I kind of took that as indication that the EWP was loosening up some.
yeah, no doubt about it. Now, one interesting talking to a big pro builder yard friend of mine, he was saying that a lot of his contractors, they're shipping out more siding and finishing products than they are. So the ratio of shipping out siding to other type of specialty products is at a huge percentage higher than framing package products. So all builders right now are trying to get done what they have open, right? It sounds
Yeah,
like, and
that's not a surprise. I mean, we're a year in for most of these builders are trying to get stuff completed, so it makes sense that would be happening. But on the backside of that, what happens after you finish the house? You get back into the cycle of be starting houses again. So we were talking. I heard Greg say yesterday we're talking about the peak production time and peak demand time and all that kind of thing. But the peak demand cycle isn't until March, April, May, in that period of time right there. So we're in the preparatory cycle right now of the lumber market of preparing for the outtake that's going to be picking up in March. And we have to assume the weather's going to be crappy till daylight savings time changes or they start to turn the corner from the cold weather. But I mean, we still got December, January, February to go through. But that's typically a time when the market goes up just based on preparation. And right now, the market is not prepared for any kind of sustained outtake.
here Thomas Baldwin was saying we are seeing more LVL availability in the market in the last 30 days. Great feedback, Tom. This is where everybody outside helps everybody else. Kelvin Johnson, I-joist now off of allocation in Canada. LVL still very difficult to get. So that it seems to be that maybe we're at the beginning of it. Maybe we're starting to see some relief on it with some. Hopefully that helps John answer part of your question. If anybody else has any feedback, I really like that, Matt, when people on the outside actually come in. And here,
Yeah,
David,
here's something that everybody's not privy to. You don't know, like David, for example. David just got a comment up here you're putting up, and Kelvin and all these guys are making comments. Some of these guys are looking at buying for 200 or 300 yards at a time. So without knowing who these people are, what their contacts are, what their impact on the market is, a lot of these guys that are coming in here are buying for not just 4 or 5 yards, but 50 and 100 yards, and so it's a big. I think it's a big deal when they comment about market conditions. I appreciate you guys doing that.
yeah, if you look at David's is great. A lot more Euro S spruce LVL is now making its way to the U.S. I never even thought about that part of it. Right, it makes absolute sense. Right, they're going to go to where the return is. And especially from mills like Polymeyer out of Germany, who are too busy with their European domestic market during the first 2 years of COVID, now are scrambling to find export markets like export markets like the U.S. We will see the same thing with glulam beams out of Europe, especially garage headers coming to the U.S. I mean, you don't get information like this unless you, Dave, man, that's great. That's perfect. I didn't know that, and it makes absolute sense, right? And that's how relief starts on stuff, right, man?
Yeah, and right now we've got it. Dave, you could probably clarify this as well. I think all the boats that were headed for the ports of the U.S. ports got delayed a little bit based on the because we had a couple of back-to-back hurricanes. But I think those boats have all landed now. There's, I'm not hearing a lot of offerings for like cheap prices on spruce at the ports on the Euro, but that wood is there, and these guys are not feeling like they got to dump it. They're waiting for better opportunities. So there's product available. It's not just being unloaded cheap at the bottom of the market, but there is some relief from your
I will tell you this, Matt. If it's on the ground, we've got hundreds of trucks up of Euro right now, and if people come in with bids on it, they're getting hit. So, but if it's not on the ground, and not in yet, there's no interest. Like boats that are rolled, but if it's sitting there on the dock, people want it gone. Does that make sense? If it's unsold yet,
Yep.
especially in certain ports. So, that's one of the activities we sent out. Well, listen, Matt, how do you want to put the bookends on this one? What's your thought going into December here, first day of it? You know, I'm starting to see, I'm starting to get that feel that there's people out there taking business. I'll put it this way: when you see some people taking short business when you should have taken it a month ago, but you all of a sudden decided to do it now.
And also there's some guys that have been shorting this thing for 6 months and they're still doing it, and it's worked well for them. But at some point you got to stop. And the people that I'm talking to that have been shorting this market for the last 6 months are now thinking about what they've done is they followed up a short position with another short position, and it's worked fine because we've just been stepping down basically all year long. Where you're at a point now where you're talking about $350 lumber. And the market's underbought, and mills are talking about curtailments. It's not a risk-on bet to be short right here. It's a bad bet. But on the other side, typically what happens with a broker, you liquidate your short position, and as a place the market's going to reverse, so you swing into a long position. So you basically can buy double or 50% more than you did to cover your shorts to establish a long position. But they're hesitant to do that. They don't know that they want to. They want to take that wood because they find a deal. For example, you find a 9-foot stud that's $50 cheap. The mill says, I got 3 of them. And I got 1 sold, so I'll buy 2 for spec, and then you can't sell the other 2 for a week.
So Ellen had a good question here, Matt, and I'll take a stab at it. He said, what's your take on the market if China goes back to work? Will that not take up some of the Euro wood products? My answer is, I think what you see right now is low grade, especially spruce, number 3 economy, 6 months ago was almost at the same price as on grade, right? Now look at where low grade is. I mean, you've got number 3 trading BC Canada at like 200.
Well, wasn't number 3 like $600 or $800 when number 2 was up? Was it over $1,000?
Yeah, and so that's one of the things. So China, in my opinion, when you see them go back to work, you should see that spread close between the low grade product and the on grade product. It should come a lot tighter and more a historical norm.
Or if you think also they just gone through a period of 2 years of having to look at $800 to $1,000 number 3, and now they can get it for $350, $400. So they get the number 2 for that. So I mean, typically when British Columbia gets a good order from China, it's because prices were just cheap enough to use for number 3.
Yeah, and right now, look at if they were going to be buying, these are numbers that should work, but because that spread continued to go out, they're not. And again, I'm not speaking to an expert on this because I don't sell to China. I just look at what the numbers are and make an observation from there. It doesn't look like they're buying much yet because those prices are still at a big, wide basis. But we'll see. But that's a great question, Alan, and hopefully maybe somebody else has a little bit more input for that, or I can educate myself a little bit about it for next week's show and have a better answer for you.
I'll do the same thing because what I don't know is how much wood is on the ports in China. And when we were full, they were equally as full. So there was just no place to put it.
Well, it's crazy if everybody thinks about how they build things in China. I've seen pictures of the docks over there and talked to people that go there. It's amazing how much wood that they can put on those docks. I'm talking logs, lumber. And if you think about the way they process lumber over there, they have processing facilities, and then they have 1 and 2 and 3 people processing facilities where they're just taking stuff, cutting it into strips and other things to put into these large high rises for backings for things. So they try to buy the cheapest fiber and turn it into whatever they need for the most part.
Sounds like a good product. But if you're going to build a city and not move in it anyway, it doesn't make any difference, does it?
That's so true. That's so true. But Well, listen, Matt, it was good. It was good getting going here. How are your weekly numbers coming? I know I wanted to circle back with you and start talking to you about that. Are you? I've heard some people saying they like looking at them. It gives them another alternative to what they had before. Which, man, if you have another alternative to something, I mean, if you don't know, Matt prints, you print that weekly, right? That
Yes,
guide,
scouting report.
the scouting report weekly, which is it's becoming getting more items on it. It's the basic items, and it shows you another basically index and pricing to look at. Of Matt uses his whole network of scouts that go out there and give um, pricing on what they saw the market trade at. And I mean, the industry needs that, because the industry needs a little bit more transparency instead of just looking at one thing to make a
It's
judgment
good
off of it, in my opinion.
confirmation too. That's
Yeah, yeah, more information the better. So, Matt, appreciate it. Do you got what else
you.
you got going on this week?
Nothing. We're getting ready to launch our next round of Inner Circle in late January. So for any of you guys that want to be included in that, we're going to launch that with a 3-part. It's called the Lumber PhD Masterclass. It's 3 1-hour sessions that are free. We're going to talk about forecasting and human behavior, and just some of the basic components of how we do their forecasting, and share that with everyone, and see if anybody's interested in trying to learn how to do it. It'll be a year-long course that people we call it experiential marketing, or market learning about the market, because you get to apply it on a hands-on basis. Like this week, we just went through the report with in the class. There's in the Inner Circle right now. There were about 17 people that signed up, but regularly there's about 5 or 6 people a week that come, and we really get into some one-on-one kind of things, like green Doug fir when that was going on with the strike, and what's going on with OSB. And so it's really it's a good opportunity to get hands-on with learning how to forecast the market yourself.
Hey, Matt, Russ Taylor just put something. He said China market is very slow now going into Chinese New Year. Inventories are modest, but takeaways are slow. So thank you, Russ. That kind of shows what we were chatting about. And hey, about your Inner Circle too. So we have 4 new people. 2 have already started in sales here at Materials Exchange, and I'm in the process of doing the training with them right now. How would that be for joining the Inner Circle for them? Would that be helpful, do you think, for somebody that's just
It'd be
starting?
awesome to get good context for them. They also start to learn how, kind of, if they don't have a lot of lumber experience, I'm trying to get my staff to try to participate in it as much as they can too, just to
No,
see the feel of
look at.
learn how to talk the talk.
I think that would be great, because otherwise I'm kind of writing a syllabus up right now to train them myself. But I mean, something like that would be would get them down the road a lot farther, and meet more people and do stuff. So we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, appreciate it,
Sounds
Matt.
cool.
So yeah,
Be long or be gone.
Yeah, you bet. So thanks, Matt. Thanks for the time today. Appreciate it. Make sure you sign